Good evening. You're watching the news at 7:30 on ATV. I'm Anne Sim.
And I'm Emily Stu. Here's a look at tonight's top stories.
CY Yeung under fire over political reform as radicals ejected in feisty LegCo session.
Government says new subsidy for low-income families will reduce poverty by 2%.
Maids demand justice and better protection after Indonesian hospitalized following brutal treatment. Chief Executive Yeung has been criticised by pan-Democrat legislators pressing for civil nomination, while pro-establishment lawmakers warned of chaos if the streets of Central are seized by protesters seeking genuine universal suffrage.
Yeung promised that all opinions expressed in a public consultation on political reform will be looked at, but his vow did not impress radicals. One day after delivering his second policy address, Chief Executive Yeung returned to the LegCo chamber, where lawmakers were waiting to grill him in a question-and-answer session this morning. As expected, political reform was on the minds of most councillors. Unionist lawmaker Yeung demanded to know why only one paragraph was devoted to constitutional reform in the Chief Executive's 63-page policy address. Yeung did not answer the question. The Labour Party's Sit Ho asked if ordinary voters would be allowed to nominate candidates for the 2017 Chief Executive election. Yeung said a public consultation exercise is underway, so officials should refrain from commenting on specific proposals. But he admitted that the government has drawn a lot of flack by staying tight-lipped. However, he promised Ho that all opinions, including those on civil nomination, will be included in a report which will be submitted to Beijing in July. Civic Party lawmaker Kenneth Chan took aim at Executive Councillor Yeung Chi-kong, who said earlier that Beijing's relationship with the pan-Democrats was worse than the strained ties between China and Japan. Chan slammed the analogy as senseless and went on to ask Yeung if he wants to be remembered as the brutal Romanian dictator Nicolae Ceausescu or as former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, who introduced political reforms. Yeung hit back, saying the situation in Hong Kong is completely different from that in Romania or the former Soviet Union. Finance sector legislator Leung expressed concern about Occupy Central's plan to block streets in the city's business heart in July if the government fails to come up with a proposal for genuine universal suffrage. Urged Yeung to get the monetary authority to conduct stress tests to estimate the potential economic cost should the pro-democracy movement carry out its threat. The lawmakers said the chief executive should learn from the chaos gripping Bangkok, where anti-government demonstrators have blocked streets in the Thai capital. Reminded the chief executive that an economist estimated that a similar blockade in Central could cost Hong Kong $1 billion a day. Yeung repeated the government's stance that the police would take action if anything illegal occurs. Once again, radical lawmakers were ejected from the chamber after disrupting proceedings. First to be ordered out was Raymond, who shouted that Yeung would go to hell for carrying out what he said was a fake consultation on political reform. For the second straight day, the League of Social Democrats' Leung Kwok-kong, who's recovering from a broken leg, was helped to his wheelchair and taken away from the chamber after hurling insults at the chief executive. People Power lawmakers Albert Chan and Raymond Chan were then given their marching orders, and they held signs that read, "Civil nomination is a must," as they were shown the door. The chief executive was also attacked by some of his allies during his LegCo's grilling today. They criticized him for failing to fulfill his election pledges.
But Yeung rejected accusations that he had overlooked the needs of the middle class and had instead presented a poverty alleviation report in his policy address. The chief executive was cornered by some of his allies this morning for not realising the pledges he made in his election manifesto. Tang Ka-pyu from the pro-government Federation of Trade Unions said his group cannot approve Leung's policy address, as he had failed to make good on his election promise to abolish the much criticised mandatory provident fund scheme's offsetting mechanism. The system allows employers to offset part of the dismissal compensation with MPF contributions. "We cannot applaud your policy address as it pays no concern to labour issues," Tang said. He pressed Yeung to say whether he would keep his election promise and scrap the offsetting mechanism. Fellow FTU lawmaker Chan Yun-han also slammed Yeung for forgetting the city's 3 million-strong workforce. She questioned what Yeung planned to do about the MPF offsetting mechanism. Chan warned him that time was running out for his administration to implement standard working hours and a comprehensive retirement protection scheme. The chief executive made it clear that the absence of labour initiatives in his policy address did not mean he was not concerned. He promised to handle the issue of the MPF offsetting mechanism within this term. Pro-government lawmaker Paul Tse asked for more economic development plans and policies to help the middle class, which he said was very disappointed with the policy address. The middle class and the grassroots have very different needs, Yeung responded. He explained that the middle class was concerned about property prices and children's education needs, but for the grassroots it may be about more fundamental living needs. Yeung also came under fire from callers to a radio program this morning, who said his second policy address had entirely neglected their needs. One caller said his family had to live on $30,000 a month, which had to cover mortgage payments, the care of 2 family members, a maid's salary and taxes. Yet the policy address only handed out resources to grassroots families. While another caller criticised Yeung for only focusing on poverty alleviation and asked if he thought the middle-class people could take care of themselves. Yeung stressed that the government had the ability and responsibility to satisfy the basic needs of the poor, adding there were relevant income and asset tests to ensure resources would be directed only to the needy. He explained that the government is using a different way to help the middle class, by boosting the city's economic development in order to improve their quality of life and upward mobility. Yesterday, Yeung unveiled a set of new initiatives that will cost taxpayers more than $10 billion per year. The government claims that a new subsidy to help low-income households will help reduce the city's overall poverty rate by as much as 2.1%.
Chief Secretary Carrie Lam also denied claims that the government is changing the direction of its welfare policy by allowing new immigrants to apply for the low-income working family subsidy. Chief Secretary Carrie Lam, Welfare Chief Matthew Yeung, and Commission on Poverty member Law Chi Kwong briefed the media this afternoon on the low-income working family subsidy announced by the chief executive yesterday. With 1.02 million people, or about 15% of the population living below the poverty line, set at half of the median household income, Lam said the new subsidy will help reduce the overall poverty rate by 2.1% to 13.1%. This means more than 40,000 families will be lifted out of poverty. The rate of children living in dire straits will plunge 4.4% to 15.2%. Lam, who also heads the Commission on Poverty, stressed that these figures are not the government's poverty alleviation targets, but they will help the administration assess and monitor the effectiveness of its aims.
It would not be appropriate to set a target which is based entirely and exclusively on bringing down the poverty rate as measured by the number of households under the poverty line.
Leung Chun-ying announced yesterday that from next year, low-income families who earn less than 50% of the median household income will receive $600 to $1,000 per month, depending on the number of hours they work per week. An extra $800 will also be granted to each eligible child aged 15 and below and young people under 21. But unlike the Comprehensive Social Security Scheme, or CSSA, there is no minimum residence requirement. This means new migrants will be eligible for the subsidy and do not have to wait a year. Lam denied claims that the government is changing the direction of its welfare policies after the Court of Final Appeal ruled last month that it's unconstitutional to deny CSSA payments to migrants who have lived here for less than 7 years.
Because you can imagine if new arrivals are coming to Hong Kong for family reunion, the best way is really to integrate them into society as early as possible. And the best way to integrate people in a society is to enable them to work.
Lam admitted the government has no separate estimate on the cost of extending this allowance to new arrivals.
It is unlikely to generate a major fiscal burden because it really tackles families with children.
But she stressed the subsidy can help prevent new migrants from falling into the CSSA net, which is a far more expensive scheme. The government was asked if the new subsidy will discourage employers from raising or even encourage them slash the salaries of low-skilled workers.
We believe that at the end of the day, this will not distort the labour market, but we will certainly keep the whole scheme under very close observation when it's launched.
Yeung stressed the primary objective of the new subsidy is to promote employment in the long run, particularly at a time when there's a labour shortage in many sectors across the city.
Protesters have demanded better protection for foreign domestic workers after an Indonesian maid was hospitalized on returning home following months of alleged physical abuse by her employers.
The demonstrators accused the helper's employment agency of doing nothing to help her and said the Hong Kong and Indonesian governments must also shoulder the blame. ATV's Yeung reports.
The treatment of foreign domestic helpers is in the spotlight again after an Indonesian maid was allegedly physically abused by her employers during the 8 months she worked in the city. About 20 people demonstrated in Causeway Bay today, demanding justice for Ariana Solistianisi, who is recovering from serious injuries in a hospital on the main Indonesian island of Java. The protest began outside an employment agency. Demonstrators claimed that when 23-year-old Ariana approached the agency for help, she was told that she first had to settle a fee before she could terminate her contract. When the employer found out what happened, the maid was given less food, deprived of sleep and prevented from leaving the flat. It's been reported that the helper wasn't given any days off or paid while working for the family in Yeung. After shouting slogans outside the employment agency, the protesters marched to the Indonesian consulate.
They are equally liable, the agencies, the employers, the Indonesian government, and even the Hong Kong government in this case, because of their policies forcing migrant workers to stay inside the employer's home. We are not allowed to live out. We are only allowed to stay 14 days after the termination of our contract. These policies have made migrant domestic workers, very vulnerable to abuse.
More people are expected to join a protest march to government headquarters at Tamar on Sunday, when most maids have a day off. In Ariana's case, suspicions were raised when cuts, bruises and burns were found on her body when she returned to Indonesia last week. Her employer reportedly threatened to kill her family in Java if she told anyone about the alleged torture. Hong Kong police have launched an investigation into the case, which they have classified as wounding. The force responded after migrant groups criticised the authorities for turning a blind eye. Last year, a couple in Tai Po were jailed for up to 5.5 years for beating their domestic helper with various items, including bicycle chains. Yeung, ATV News.
A teenage girl has been sent to a drug rehabilitation centre for her role in abusing a stray cat which was kicked like a football by a group of people.
The court said because of her age, it was more important to rehabilitate than to punish her. ATV's Arthur Urquiola reports.
Hong Kong man was driven to Kwun Tong Magistrates Court this morning on an animal cruelty charge. She and 2 men were arrested after abusing a stray cat along the corridor of a public housing tower block in Kwun Tong in November 2012. Witnesses said the men kicked the animal like a football, while others in the group looked on and laughed. The feline was left paralyzed and bleeding from its mouth, with injuries so severe that it had to be put down the following day. Kong, who's 18 years old, was arrested 2 days after the incident in the same building where the cat was attacked. The 2 other defendants were jailed for 16 months each a fortnight ago, the longest term to be imposed in Hong Kong so far for animal cruelty. Kong's sentencing was postponed pending a drug rehabilitation report. Today, her lawyer said his client had stopped taking drugs since November and was willing to undergo treatment and reflect on her mistakes. The lawyer said Kong had dropped out of school in Form 2 and was led astray by bad friends. Prosecutors said she had played a smaller role in the offense, and there's no evidence to show that she had kicked the cat. In handing down the sentence, Deputy Magistrate Kenneth Tai said it was a serious case. However, she noted that the defendant did not have a criminal record. Tai also said that because of her age, it was important to help Kong undergo rehabilitation. The magistrate ordered the teenage girl to be sent to a drug rehabilitation center. The case sparked widespread anger after a picture of the cat bleeding from its mouth was uploaded online. Arthur Ricchiola, ATV News.
Still to come on ATV's main news tonight. Beijing hit by worst smog in months, forcing officials to take drastic action.
Rafael Nadal wins, but heatwave forces 4-hour suspension in Australian Open.
Gold Coast in Guangdong, presenting scenic views in front of you. Join our Gold Coast tour and experience great leisure time. Gold Coast tour at Guangdong of China, tonight at 8. A beautiful new life is just there. Apparently, the troublemaker doesn't think so.
What did you do?
It wasn't me!
Trying to help or mess up? Someone must be lying.
She has to play. Tell her if she doesn't, she'll be sorry.
Mega Hit 900, Ghost Whisperer 4, tonight at 9. With sunshine and water, there'll be Chinese people. Our crew travelled all over the world to find these brave souls who have gone through the toughest time to settle in foreign lands. They did the impossible, and we make sure their stories will be heard. The 15th Route-Seeking Anniversary. Stories from Afar. Saturday night at 8:30.
唉，我請極都請唔到人。
30年後，每3個香港人中就有1個係長者，到時仲難請人啊！
好多老人家仲好做得，可以遲啲退休，做義工又得。
如果有人幫手睇住阿 B 啊，我都想返工啊！
要幫到手，都要經過訓練。
好多地方都動緊腦筋，要吸納人才。
你哋講嘅嘢都同人口政策息息相關。
有意見就提出嚟啦！
Be cool. Keep updated with the international music scene. Warner Music Power Station, tonight at 10. Want to promote your latest products on television? ATV's 2014 Ad Easy package is the right choice for you. Our promotion reaches as far as the Pearl River Delta region and southern China. And our price starts at just $68,000. Call 2992-8890 or our mainland hotline now.
Ethnic minority students have been urged to take advantage of a new Chinese language curriculum, which could open the door to a brighter future.
The subject is being introduced after the government faced criticism for ignoring ethnic minorities. Bolong reports.
In his policy address yesterday, the chief executive unveiled a $200 million plan for a new Chinese language curriculum to help ethnic minority students improve their chances of higher education and better jobs. In LegCo today, he said the opportunity should not be missed.
I hope members of the ethnic minority groups will be forthcoming to work with government to allow, for example, their children to learn better Chinese. And we will take the joint efforts of the schools, the community organizations concerned, and also the government to actually achieve this goal. But it is our determination to move forward to actually do it.
Education Secretary Yeung said plans to launch Chinese as a second language learning framework for primary and secondary schools first came up 2 years ago.
After a much wider consultation, we believe that this is a time to make a more comprehensive proposal. And that's the reason why we are proposing it now. And of course, it will still be requiring a lot of building of expertise and alignment of expertise and resources and cooperation from all key stakeholders as well.
Yeung was also asked why the government is offering students a subsidy to study on the mainland instead of encouraging them to go to local universities. Yeung said mainland universities provide some courses that are not available in Hong Kong. He added that most of the students will return to the city to find work and contribute to society. Bolong, ATV News.
Police have arrested more than 80 people after smashing a vice establishment that was operating in an old shopping mall in the New Territories.
Among those arrested were 37 suspected prostitutes working out of converted toilets in the mall. Arthur Kyola reports.
Weapons and gambling equipment were among the items seized during an operation against a criminal gang, which used a Yunlong Mall as its headquarters. Police uncovered the haul today, 2 days after raiding the shopping complex. Immigration officers joined police in the raid, which was launched based on intelligence gathered during an undercover operation that began in April last year. They arrested 84 people for blackmail, criminal intimidation, and membership of a triad society. Among those arrested were 37 mainland women on two-way permits who were suspected to be working as prostitutes in toilets that had been modified into brothels. Police said the syndicate took advantage of the low rents in the mall to run its illegal business. A 24-year-old foreigner was taken back to a flat in Ao Tau Kok after he was arrested this morning when police and customs officers found 4 kilos of cannabis on him. Another 23 kilos of the drug were found in the subdivided unit on Lun On Street. Officers say in total the haul was worth $2.6 million. Arthur Kyola, ATV News.
Millions of mainlanders are on the move ahead of the Lunar New Year holiday.
But first, another look at stories from the mainland. Beijing is smothered in smog that's expected to linger for a day or two. ATV's Ben O'Rourke reports.
Masks were the order of the day today for commuters on their way to work in Beijing, which is experiencing its worst smog in months. The index measuring particulate levels reached 500 in parts of the capital, which is 200 higher than the level considered hazardous. The local government has unveiled a new smog alert system that imposes curbs on drivers and manufacturing and construction businesses if 3 consecutive days of hazardous pollution are forecast. It's also announced plans to burn gas instead of coal to generate power and heat homes. 4 motorways around the city were temporarily closed this morning due to the thick smog. The city plans to ban all heavily polluting vehicles this year. The Spring Festival travel rush officially began today. Over the next 40 days, an estimated 3.6 billion passenger trips will be made across the country. According to mainland media, that's around 200 million more than last year. China Railway Corporation says it will increase its passenger capacity by adding more than 600 extra trains to cope with the rush. Domestic flights will increase to more than 62,000 a week from the current 50,000, while international flights will increase 20% to more than 9,600 each week. Mainland airlines will provide at least 1.1 million seats every day to meet the demand. While millions are speeding across the country, road builders in Wuhan were taking it slowly with a section of viaduct they rotated 106 degrees. The rotation, the first of its kind in China, took 51 minutes. The viaduct is part of the Guxiaoshu Expressway and is 256 metres long, 32 metres wide, and weighs more than 17,000 tonnes. Chief Engineer Pan Dongfa said the original plan was to rotate the road in the other direction, but some houses were in the way. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
Time now for sports with Raymond Yeung.
And there was chaos at the Australian Open today.
Well, that's right. The searing heat halted play for 4 hours. Oven-like conditions in Melbourne forced organisers to suspend play. But before that, Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer both had easy victories.
Even dogs are struggling to stay active in the heat wave, which has sent temperatures in southeastern Australia soaring to 45 degrees Celsius. While some bathers were happy, it was a nightmare for tennis stars taking part in the first Grand Slam of the year. Third-seeded Russian Maria Sharapova relied on ice packs to keep her body cool in her second-round clash against Italian Karen Knapp. The extreme heat policy put in force during the match could see the roofs closed for some relief, but it could only be done after the completion of a set. But the game already in the deciding set, that never happened, and Sharapova won the marathon match 6-3, 4-6, 10-8. In the men's draw, top seed Rafael Nadal was lucky to play under a roof, although he had a rowdy crowd to deal with in his match against home favourite Thanasi Kokkinakis. The 17-year-old never proved a threat though, as Nadal wrapped a victory in under 2 hours, 6-2, 6-4, 6-2. The Spaniard is joined in the third round by old rival Roger Federer, who dismissed Slovenian qualifier Blaž Kavkic in straight sets. The 32-year-old Swiss hopes to erase a largely disappointing run last year, with a Grand Slam trophy at the Australian Open, which he's won 4 times, though he failed to reach the final in the past 3 years.
In football, Real Madrid have breezed into the last 8 of the Kings Cup by beating Osasuna away in a game that was marred by controversy.
Reigning Footballer of the Year Cristiano Ronaldo fired Real Madrid into the lead on 21 minutes, but it was Osasuna goalkeeper Andreas Fernandez who stole the spotlight with an embarrassing blunder. The keeper inexplicably chose to punch the ball from a free kick, but it somehow bounced through his legs and into the net. Osasuna had few chances in the first half of the second leg time, and the left-footed strike by Alvaro Cejudo was the closest they came to scoring. The controversial moment came in the 55th minute when the referee failed to blow the whistle for what appeared to be a foul by Xabi Alonso, though he had a clear view of the action. As a result, Real launched a counter-attack, which ended with an easy finish by Angel Di Maria, whose goal infuriated the home crowd. Real won 2-0 to advance on a 4-0 aggregate.
A look at the weather before we go. Thanks to a winter monsoon, Hong Kong had another fine and dry day. Temperatures ranged from 11.8 to 16.7 degrees, while the relative humidity was between 57 and 73%. Winds were moderate coming in from the northeast. Let's check on the ultraviolet reading. The maximum recorded for the day was 6. Tomorrow's UV index will also be around 6. Now for a look at the weather in the region. A dry winter monsoon is bringing fine conditions to southern China. And now the satellite images. Fine weather over the South China coastal regions, but a low pressure area is bringing unsettled conditions to the seas east of the Philippines. Here's what we can expect over the next few days. Cool tomorrow morning, dry during the day, but expect pollution again. Temperatures will range from 13 to 18 degrees. More of the same conditions in the following few days. Here are the latest pollution readings under the Air Quality Health Index. General stations are at 5 to 7, meaning the health risk is moderate to high. Roadside levels are at 6, and the health risk is moderate. Finally, here's the weather around the world.
That's our main news for Thursday night. We'll have an update in 1 hour. I'm Emily Sue.
I'm Raymond Yeung.
And I'm Anne-Marie Sim. Thanks for watching ATV. Good night.
Good night.
Coming up, Gold Coast tour at Guangdong of China.
Anyone who attempts to give culture a definition is destined to fail. They will tell you anything is possible.
All About documentary, Culture X, tonight at 10:05.
This Saturday, get extra amusement from our fabulous Korean Hour and wait until you come to the final destination, where you will be welcomed by endless tears and heartwarming laughter. Korea Agro Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation Special. Korean Hour. You Are My Destiny. Saturday afternoon at 5:30. If every moment of your life is the last chance, will you let it slip away? Devoting all his life revitalizing a little-known place of Japan. Only dreamers who are doers can make dreams come true. Pursuits. Saturday night at 8. How did the universe go from being simple to like it is today?
Actually, their existence changed everything.
The first stars are a lifetime challenge for me to hope to understand.
Look back in time. The first star tells the secret of the universe's origin. Documentary World, Cosmic Front,